Breakouts live. And for those of our buddies just joining, let us know in the chat, what is your design mentorship experience and what would y'all like to learn from a mentor? If you're mentors, what would you like to share or like your mentees to learn? Awesome, cool. So we are live on YouTube. Love the dialogue in the chat right now. I'll briefly share the few slides I usually share in case this is your first Design Buddies event. And we're excited to be here with buddies at Mural. But before that, I will share Design Buddies. So Design Buddies, I'm Grace. I founded Design Buddies back in April of 2020. And we're basically a community to provide a lot of resources to help y'all level up in your design career. And we've hosted a lot of events, and we also have a lot of social media platforms that y'all can connect with us on. And then just really briefly, I think some of y'all were here yesterday as well. So this will be really quick. Events are recorded, but however, this event will be a little bit more interactive. And so you'll get a chance to connect with fellow buddies in a smaller group setting later on. Feel free to engage in the chat with each other, get to know each other. We also have like self-promo time at the end as well, but feel free to keep promotion links in our networking sheet. We'll have Q&A on Zoom chat this time. We also have group selfies towards the end. And then some Zoom backgrounds y'all can use. Feel free to tag Design Buddies on social media. If something resonates with you, connect with each other, hop into Discord. And with that, I'll hand it over to Adrienne to introduce our event for today.
Hey everyone, I'm really excited for all of us to come back again. If you were here yesterday, we jumped right into learning about design sprints, what they are, what they're not, and really how to get started with doing your own. And so today, this afternoon, wherever you're zooming in from, Ramisa's going to start us off with jumping into an actual mural template that can help you in learning a little bit more about design sprints. So I'm going to send it over to Ramisa to give us a taste of what we're going to do today.
Yeah, so hi everyone. Thank you for joining us, whether you joined us yesterday or if this is your first time with us in our design sprint workshop series over these past couple of days. My name is Ramisa. I'm a mural student ambassador, just like Adrienne and Saya, who's also here with us today. I guess I'll give like a short introduction of myself. So I'm currently a master's student in the Masters of Human-Computer Interaction program at Georgia Tech. I am a first-year master's student in this program, so I just started last fall, and I graduated my undergrad with a degree in computer science. So I know a lot of other people might also be making a similar transition from computer science to design. I have interned previously at CarMax as a product design intern, and I'll be interning at Amazon this summer as a UX design intern. And I will drop my LinkedIn in the chat later for anyone who wants to connect. But yeah, so let's get into this workshop. So the way that this is going to be set up is I'm going to go through sort of like a brief overview of some of the design sprint activities that we're going to sort of work together as a team into separate breakout groups. After going through that overview, we're going to have like a brief Q&A. And after that Q&A, we're going to split up into breakout rooms for whoever wants to stick around and sort of like tackle it on our own. All right, so I'm going to share my screen so that you all can see the mural. Yeah, so our prompts today, and you can follow along in this mural with the link. Not sure if it was sent yet, but it should be sent soon. And so our prompt for today's design sprint is design mentorship. So, sort of relating to your icebreaker question, a lot of you have different things that you want out of design mentors, but it's often pretty difficult for design mentees to find design mentors that they feel like align with their interests, align with their goals and aspirations. So people could have different experiences that they might not be able to relate to. They might come from different backgrounds, they have different needs, different interests, etc. And so our prompt for today's design sprint is to design something to help design mentees more easily find design mentors. All right, so the first step is understanding the problem. And so what you're going to do in this first step is first map out some of your long-term and short-term goals. These can include both user goals and business goals. And, like some user goals might include, like build long-lasting relationships between mentors and mentees. Business goals might be, to like increase user return and like get users to stay on a platform if you're designing a certain platform for like a business or for a corporation. You also want to ask questions about the design sprint. So, like some questions that you might have might include like, can we build trust with users? Are we focusing this design sprint and this design deliverable on mentees, or are we focusing them on mentors? Just any questions that you might have about the sprint. Finally, we're going to have how might we questions. And so some of you guys might be familiar with how might we questions, but for those of you who aren't, these statements are used to sort of identify problems that you want to address with your prototype. Like they could be like questions that you have based on the problem that you really want to address. So like, for example, like how might we allow mentees to schedule time with mentors more easily? Because this design sprint session is a lot more condensed than a traditional design sprint. If you were here yesterday, Adrienne focused on the Google Ventures 5-day design sprint. We only have like an hour today, so it's definitely not going to be as fleshed out as some of those design sprints that are worked on at Google Ventures. But like normally you would do like some prior user research before like going into this understanding the problem stage. But for the sake of this exercise and to sort of introduce you guys to the concept of design sprints, we're going to have this first step, be based on, your own experiences and observations. And so you can use one of the templates that we have for design sprints here if you want to get started. But if you're sticking around for the session, we will like send out murals that will like sort of follow all of these steps that I'll be going through today. And so today, like we will have this step take about 5 minutes. All right, so the next step is ideation. And so for the ideation process, there's lots of different things that you can do. You can sketch different ideas that you might have. You can take lots of notes and compile them into, like common themes, common ideas that you observe throughout like some of your research, some of your like understanding the problem in the previous step. All of this is going to build upon each other, and all of this is going to be based on some of the previous observations that you have made. But one common form of ideation is called crazy eights, where essentially you have a very short amount of time and you're meant to come up with 8 distinct ideas. They can be, like they can range from drawing sketches of what you might want a particular interface or a particular system to look like in order to solve its problem, writing out features that you think might be good to address in this based on the insights that you've gained from previous steps of the design sprint, and just general sketches of like particular features that you might want to include. So it doesn't have to be fully fleshed out. It doesn't have to be neat. It honestly doesn't even have to be readable sometimes. The objective of this is just trying to get out as many ideas as possible in a limited amount of time. And don't worry about like these ideas not being perfect. Something that's really important in the ideation process is, just getting as many things out as possible, even if you don't think that they might be the best, because, it's meant to be a collaborative process, and other members of your team will be able to sort of like build upon things that you have thought of and sort of iterate on them to, like strengthen them and improve them. And so basically how you're going to do this is fold your paper up or divide your screen into 8 sections. Take around 2 minutes to draw or write an idea into each of the boxes based off of the goals, questions, and how might we statements that you identified. And so like these 2 minutes are going to be for like all 8 boxes. So it's like super quick. And then you're gonna scan and take a photo of your sketches, or like if they're already in if they're being done digitally, you can just leave them as is. But if you're drawing them out physically, then you might want to scan them or take a photo of them and upload them to your mural. And take about 2 more minutes to discuss your ideas with your team. And, you know, this way everyone sort of gets an idea of like what everyone is thinking. And sort of like able to probe everyone's minds in terms of this ideation session. And then you're going to repeat all of the above steps once, but this time you should try to build upon at least one idea that your teammates have come up with that you might have liked. And so like, for example, like if someone has presented a drawing of like an interface that they think might be a good solution to this problem. If you weren't like super into the entire interface, but there are like a few things about it that you liked, you know, just sketch your own that have those few things on it. Like, again, like I mentioned before, like it's meant to be a collaborative process, and, you know, like multiple minds are better than one. And this process is going to take around 10 minutes for the purpose of like this workshop. And so step 3 is the decision-making or prioritization process. And so you're going to take the sketches that you created in round 2 of the ideation phase and vote on the ones that you like best. And so you can do several different like ways of voting on this. Like you can like talk it out, you can do dot voting, and it's really up to you on how you want to approach this. I find that dot voting works if you're in like a larger team, but like I prefer discussion if you're in a smaller team. And so, you know, like make sure you're referring to both user and business needs when making decisions. You might have to like prioritize some of those user and business needs if you've come up with a lot of them. You also should probably think about which of those solutions is most practical to implement, which one might be able to like fulfill most or more user needs within like your given amount of time fastest and most efficiently. And just like most importantly, like you should discuss these and advocate for yourself and for others if you think other members of your team have really good ideas. All right, so the next step is prototyping. And so after you've sort of decided on like a solution based off of your ideation, you're gonna want to take some of those like key features that you've identified in that ideation process and, you know, start prototyping them. So like you can draw or sketch your prototype and, you know, like the solution doesn't have to be digital. It can be a physical solution as well. Like we don't want to limit ourselves to only digital solutions. While this might be easiest, you know, like it's good to sort of keep an open mind when designing things, because maybe the most effective solution might be a physical solution rather than, you know, like an app or a website. You can also use digital prototyping tools if you prefer. So like Figma, Adobe XD, Sketch, if you're comfortable using these. You could also use Balsamic to create like wireframes. And so like your prototype doesn't have to be pixel perfect. Adrienne mentioned yesterday that it should be about Goldilocks quality, which means like good enough to be able to test on users and get good feedback from, but, you know, like it doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be ready for production. You know, you just got to get a general idea of what it looks like so that you can present and test it on users. And that should take about 15 minutes today. Normally it would probably take longer. And the final step is testing. And so for this workshop, we're gonna like share prototypes.
Can I pause you for a quick
yeah.
sec, Ramisa?
Go ahead.
I've got a great question in the chat from Drew. What exactly are we supposed to be drawing in the Crazy Eights activity?
Yeah, so in the Crazy Eights activity, let me just go back to it. Yeah, so basically, it's just any idea that you could have relating to a possible solution for this problem that you've identified. And so, for example, like you could draw an app screen if you think that an app is like the best solution for it. It doesn't have to be super detailed. Like you can maybe point out key features of this app that you want to put in. You can also like write things down, like make notes of like specific aspects that you think should be particularly addressed in this solution. You can write down like features that you might have in mind for the solution. You can sketch out like really small parts of the overall solution, just like any idea that you have that is relating to this. And again, like it doesn't have to be fully fleshed out, just like allowing your team members to get some sort of semblance of what you're really thinking in terms of this solution. Does that answer the question?
Can I add to this, Ramisa? Because I think you made a good point in that Crazy Eights don't have to be fleshed out at all, right? And the reason for that is because we want to get as many ideas out as possible. So typically your first idea is probably going to be something that's so narrow and obvious, right? Like if we're talking about design mentorship, my first idea might be something about like ADP list where I book a time with a mentor. That's obvious, it's done. But by the time I've created 8 different designs, I might have like this really cool YouTube type of like algorithm type of design that really pushes those boundaries. And that might not be what you choose as a team, but the idea is if I have 8 different designs and Ramisa has 8 different designs and Saya has 8 different designs, that's a plethora of designs to choose from to then go into the voting process with. So really about getting that creativity out there and choosing something that everyone can decide on the best possible solution rather than something that is like completely narrow and focused on just one particular way to solve a problem.
Yep. And, that's sort of like the reason that we have multiple stages of Crazy Eights as well. So that, like Adrienne was saying, like you might start out, super narrow or super broad. And, like after getting an understanding of what everyone else is thinking, you'll be able to build upon that and really like drive towards like a good solution that everyone agrees upon. All right. So going back to the testing phase. So like I mentioned, like in the testing phase, this is going to follow your prototyping phase. So you're going to share your prototype with someone who is outside of your team to understand how to further iterate on it. So there are a lot of different ways to go about this based on how fleshed out your prototype is. So, if you don't have a super fleshed out prototype, one way you can do this is showcase your prototype presentation style and ask users for feedback on the prototype based off of your presentation. You can also walk the user through your prototype as they're using it and pay attention to their comments, actions, reactions, just the way that they are really like interpreting and using this prototype. You would probably do this if you have something that is, like a little bit more fleshed out than something that you would only be able to use a presentation for, but not quite fleshed out enough that it's like not interactive on its own. And finally, like if you have a prototype that is, like fully interactive or like almost fully interactive, you can ask your ask your user to use your prototype and, make note of any problems that they have while they're going through it, things they like about it, things they dislike about it, kind of similar to the previous method, just like understanding how they're really interacting with this. And so like, after making note of the ways that they're interacting with it, like any feedback that they have for you, you can use these insights to inform your next design sprint and further iterations. And so, kind of just getting a general idea of what, like how to really like improve your prototype, like what users are generally thinking, any like pitfalls, any good things about it. I think like something that people often forget to do is, like think about the positives, like thinking like about ways to like keep good aspects of your prototype intact is super important. Yeah, and so these are just meant to help inform your next iteration, because like when you're designing, you're constantly testing, you're constantly iterating in order to like get like an optimal design, something that you feel like will really like help improve the experience of people and really address the problem that you're trying to tackle. And so for this workshop, we'll take about 10 minutes for that. Yeah, and so like once again, like if you want to sort of like have some guidance on like doing design sprints on your own, you can use some of these murals that we have like as templates. You can also read the remote design sprint guide that Adrienne also talked about yesterday. And yeah, so that's kind of what we'll be doing today for anyone who wants to stick around. All right, I will stop sharing my screen and we can go into a brief Q&A before we head into breakout groups.
Does anyone have any questions about anything that Ramisa covered? Anything on that template that you were just kind of seeing? May also be a lingering question that you have from yesterday's content about what is a design sprint. So feel free to pop those in the chat too.
As we wait for questions, we can do a quick group photo. I normally do that. Do y'all for that? Cool. I'll drop the mural link again. It's weird, like I have a different link, but someone asked me for the mural link, so I hope that one works. Cool. So let's do a group photo. If y'all want to turn on your cameras if you want. If not, then you can react and y'all can be in our group photo. I guess everyone's shy. I don't know. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2. I'll bring my jellyfish with me.
Looks like we've got folks coming on camera. Give them 1 sec.
Okay, cool. Yeah, for sure. And then we'll do Q&A as well. Don't be shy, buddies. We're all friendly here. If anyone's like not being friendly, then like, yeah, they'll get like yeeted out. So it's all good. It's all good here. Only good vibes.
I love
here.
your toys.
Oh, thank you. I have like so many plushies. Like random fun fact, when I first got my like tech internship, I was like, oh wow, I have like this like money I could spend on stuff. And so I got plushies because I just wanted. That's like back in college, so I had too many plushies still from that. Yeah, all right. I'll count down 5 seconds. So I can do a group photo and a little wave. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Say design sprint. All right, cool. We can do a little wave for Instagram story as we wait for some more questions to come in. Let me just make sure I'm logged into the correct Instagram. Once I actually posted my own like Instagram story on the Design Buddies Instagram, I quickly deleted it though, so no one saw. Yeah. All right, ready, set, wave. Hello, buddies. We are at a wholesome design sprint workshop with our buddies at Miro. If y'all want, you can hop into Zoom. We'll be doing a design sprint shortly on the topic of design mentorship. Cool. So I will post this on our story and we can hop into Q&A.
I think we had a couple questions, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, and some of these may be good reviews for Adrienne from yesterday. We've got one around what is a design sprint, and 2, maybe what is that guide that we were referring to, Adrienne?
So let's talk about a design sprint real fast. So a design sprint is a really cool tool that designers and really everybody a part of a company can use to quickly come up with a solution to a problem. So within a 5-day span, typically, but today we're going to do 30 minutes. Love the enthusiasm. We will go into ideating and thinking about a solution to a problem, such as design mentorship, going into thinking more about how we can design it and quickly design it in an ideation phase, then going into building a prototype and testing it with users. In this particular case, it'll be a little bit more condensed, but a design sprint is a very collaborative effort that helps designers, engineers, even marketers or parts of stakeholders in a company get together in one place to really focus on a design solution. They are very versatile. They don't always have to be about a design for an app or website. They can be focused on a design for a physical product, shoes, or even like a company space. It could be a service design, even a marketing campaign. So I have a template from our previous presentation yesterday. I'll make sure to drop that in the chat so people that weren't here yesterday can check it out. In regards to the guide is a really cool one by the people that actually created design sprints. Design sprints were born out of Google Ventures. And at Google Ventures, there's a really cool guy named Jake Knapp who created a guide to doing remote design sprints. So as you can imagine, just like everything else, design sprints used to be very much in person in one room for 5 days. Whereas now with really great tools like Mural and collaborative tools that Ramisa talked about earlier, like Figma, we can quickly iterate on a design without having to ever be in the same room together, except for a Zoom room. So I will make sure that you have that resource as well. They are linked in both of the templates, so you can review what it would look like to do a design sprint remotely.
Thanks, Adrienne. Hopefully that answered your questions, Jane and Drew. We had a couple of questions. Is it okay if I miss the first session? Absolutely. We know this is a two-parter, so there are recordings available. Feel free to check those out on the Design Buddies YouTube. If you did miss the first session and want to go back and review that, there was lots of good Q&A in there as well about some more details and recommendations on when and how do you use one and what's the best kind of one thing to do a design sprint for. But no need to have attended that to participate today. We're happy to have anyone join in that is interested in practicing their design sprint skills. There you go, Grace, love it. Any other questions about design sprints or any of the sample activities that Ramisa covered? Also, feel free to raise your hand. We're happy to have you come off mute and add in if you've got anything that you want to chime in with as a verbal question. Maybe I have a good question for you, Ramisa, while we're waiting to see if anyone's got anything else before we go into breakouts. If you are doing things like crazy eights, what happens if I get stuck? So what happens if I get to like 2 or 3 ideas and I can't idea anymore? Any thoughts? You, Adrienne, anyone else?
Yeah, so like what I normally do is like if I get stuck, I just, like I feel like I am more of someone who like thinks of words more easily than actual sketches. Just because, I'm not a super like visually trained person, I think. And so like in that case, like I'll just fill the other boxes with like words, like, I'll write like a sentence of what I think something should look like, or like what I think would be like a cool idea to put in. And I also like have times when I can't fill out all 8, and that's totally fine. Like there's no requirement to fill out every single box there. Like all 8 boxes are there to, like encourage you to ideate as much as you can, but like there's no problem if you can't really get all of them. Like in my internship last summer, like I was on this like intern product team, and I was the only design intern. And I was working with like software engineering interns and like a product manager intern. And so when we were ideating, I was sort of like in charge of like leading this sort of like design sprint and like facilitating this like design workshop with the rest of my team, because all of them had been like involved in the research process. And so they had sort of an idea of, you know, like the problems that some of our users were facing, and like having their perspective, like which was definitely different than mine as someone who was a designer, was really important. And, you know, like because like this was something that they hadn't done before, they like couldn't really like ideate super quickly as much as like someone who might have a lot more experience with it might have. And so, you know, a lot of them would like not like fill out every single box. And, you know, it was fine because we still had so many ideas, and we were still able to really like generate a lot of like valuable discussion and get a lot of important insights and ideas from that.
I also want to chime in. For me, since I think, again, like a little about me, I actually am majoring in graphic design. So for us, like, you know, like we had classes where constantly we had to make ideas of branding and logos. And I feel that, you know, when that occurs for me, what I do, I don't know if this is just me, I would go to dictionary and find synonyms of the word. So for example, let's say membership, and then maybe there's other words like, I can't really think right now, but like, you know, like accounts or community or like togetherness, like just different words really spark some ideas. Since I understand sometimes when you see a word, it just gives you roadblocks. So that's what a little cheat that I do a lot of the times, because I think it gives you more like a library of things like, oh wait, actually like, you know, membership is like community is like, you know, like a family kind of thing or something like that. So that could probably help you and spark ideas, especially when you're doing like crazy 8.
Yeah. Another really fun idea too is try to think so far outside of the box that it doesn't even make sense, right? So if I'm thinking of like a checkout for a app or even for a actual clothing store, I might position it that the checkout, you are on the moon and that this alien has a check. It gets your creativity flowing so well that oftentimes it can get you out of that creator's block. It can sound really silly, but there's a lot of times where going so far out that particular thing is impossible can sometimes generate an idea that is at least fairly possible from there. So really converge and diverge, as they say, go super far out to the point that it just doesn't even make sense. That doesn't make sense, but go back to another idea.
Picking about what you're saying, it's kind of similar to what I think about, like if money was not an issue, like there's no budget, what would your product be, or what would your product would look like? What do you hope so? And that's like another way to also think about it.
Yeah. And I see Michael's question. I love this question. Do we have an alternative method aside from design sprints? What if the company doesn't have the resources and the time? So something we mentioned about yesterday is that oftentimes stakeholders may not have the time, right? They can be very busy, might be part of various different projects, and being in one room, even if it's a Zoom room for 5 days, might just sound like not even feasible for their calendar. So rather than doing a design sprint where you might be pulling a lot of people, design sprints are so versatile, it can be really just you. It would be not as great, right? It's supposed to be collaborative and you get all these really great ideas, but maybe you design sprint yourself. Maybe you think of how you can quickly iterate on this one design and get feedback on a couple of designs. Maybe you send over a couple of designs. That's not unheard of in design at all. I know even in graphic design, I did a little bit of that where I would do different variations of a design and send every single copy over to say, hey, which one kind of seems to align the best, which one mostly works with those keywords, like say I mentioned, and then being able to pull them in on very key factors that are part of that design decision. So what would actually be implemented and how we would go about implementing it. Design sprints aren't to be expensive by any means. They are really time saving in a lot of ways because you're meant to learn and fail very fast. So I can understand the time. In terms of resources, it shouldn't take a lot of resources for a company to take the time for a design sprint. But I could definitely understand the time. That happens a lot.
Also, I just want to chime in one more thing since I know we should start the breakout rooms. When you're doing design, and especially like ideating or creating sketches of your wireframe and things like that, like there is no wrong design. I think that's what I learned. Also, especially in a sprint, never critique your own design. Never critique your sketches. Like, oh, this one is a bad idea. I shouldn't draw it. No, like just flush everything out. Like anything that you have in your mind, vomit all out. Because with design sprint, the whole idea, like what Adrienne is saying, is to basically you want to do something within a time constraint, right? And you can't critique yourself. That blocks you in order to create better things. So like that's why crazy is a really good idea, because you're flushing out every idea. And like she was saying, like the first two ideas probably going to be more I don't want to say the word basic, but more typical. And then the third and the fourth would be more different and things like that. So never be afraid of sketching. Like I think the first step, putting your pencil on the paper, is the scariest, but once you start flushing it out, it gets better and better. I think that's what I learned too.
Fabulous.
Great. Yeah. Any more questions? If not, we can go ahead and get into the breakout.
Maybe let me give a quick update on what we'll be doing in breakouts before we jump into those. So the plan for breakouts is that we will be moving folks into small groups with one of our facilitators and letting you work on that design challenge around design mentorship very rapidly in the last 20 minutes through your design sprint components. We will not get through everything. Full disclosure, right? We will not get through anything. This will likely be mildly stressful because we will be on a time crunch. That is intentional. Design sprints are also on a time crunch and they do feel a little stressful. So you're welcome to stay and join. My caveat is that we are expecting full and active participation from anyone who stays and is joining a breakout group. So if you're like, I'm partially here, I'm like listening to other things in the background, etc. Feel free to go ahead and drop. We won't be recording after this. So anything that you add or contribute into breakouts is going to be completely anonymous outside of the folks that you're working with on the call. But that'll be kind of my like caveat, soapbox for a second is we'd love for everyone to stay. It will be intense. It will be the last 30 minutes of kind of full engagement through a mural. So if you either don't think you can give your full engagement for the next 30 minutes and or would rather not be our participant in this, please feel free to drop. There are no hard feelings. You will get one of these blank templates when we're done, just as a resource for you as well as everything else we've talked about. So with that, I will give it a minute for anyone to drop who's like, nah, thanks, I'm good. Like, count me out of this. This is not my vibe. And then once we have everyone else kind of here, I will go ahead and set up breakouts.
By the way, we are okay to go a little bit over time. So we have 30 minutes, but if any of our hosts have to drop, feel free to do so as well. I just don't want to be like too stressful for everyone.
Awesome. Okay. My assumption is that everyone else is staying with us, which is great. Hi, welcome folks. We're thrilled to have you. You've got my cat in the background. She's very excited to be here too, apparently. I'm going to go ahead and sort people into breakout rooms. And with that, you should see it pop up in just a minute. There are breakout rooms, so it'll push you 1 second. Just making sure we actually have our team spread out across all the rooms.
And I know it's like kind of past our event time, and I think it's okay if you have to go. But yeah, I just wanted to get making sure that no one feels that time crunch. And yeah.
I love it.